or 09, for those of you that know what that means. I now call the joint public hearing of the House Intergovernmental Affairs and Operations Committee and the House Veterans Affairs and Emergency Preparedness Committee to order. At this time, we will conduct a roll call for the Intergovernmental Affairs Committees. Ms. Somerville, will you proceed with the roll? Leave. 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 Joined online. Here. Quorum is present. Thank you, Ms. Somerville. Will the Veterans Affairs Committees now conduct a roll?
Thank you, Chairman. Jamie, please call the roll. Here.
Here.
Here. Here.
Here.
Thank you. Ms. Somerville, will you call the roll for the minority party and the Veterans Affairs, or not, pardon me, the Intergovernmental Affairs Committee? Thank you.
Leave. 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 Present. Leave. Say again? I'm here.
Thank you, Ms. Somerville. The purpose of this hearing is to discuss H.R. 157, sponsored by Representative Zimmerman, which calls on Congress to pass the PTSD Treatment Act for veterans to offer stellate ganglion block therapy to eligible veterans. Chair Solomon, would you like to offer any opening remarks?
Thank you, Chairman. I really appreciate everyone being here today. Rep. Zimmerman, thank you for bringing this issue before this joint hearing. I think that when veterans sign up, when service members sign up to serve, they sign up to defend their country, to defend the Constitution, but they do not sign up to be broken mentally. And that's, I think, a critical distinction. So when they come home, they take the uniform off. We owe an obligation to them, and we all know the statistics. About 20 veterans every single day commit suicide, many of them due to issues dealing with mental health, specifically PTSD. We are now here to explore a potential avenue to look at to really get veterans the help they need. It's not just that veterans are suffering. The treatments are lacking, so that when we look at the veteran population, talk therapy, et cetera, only about 30% of the veterans respond to the treatment we are offering. So I am all ears, and again, thank you to Chairman Deloso, thank you to Representative Zimmerman and this panel for being here today. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman Solomon. Chairman Gillen, would Would like to make some remarks.
Yeah, I think I'll refer to it as SGB treatment after hearing pronunciation. I'm not sure I can manage it. Very well done, Mr. Chairman. Certainly grateful for a very robust presence from my home area, Berks County, Director, Assistant Director there, Veterans Affairs. I think it's all about helping those with PTSD, PTSI, and it's worthy of a hearing, and I appreciate the presence of my colleagues as well as the testifiers being here relatively early on a Monday morning. I think it's about efficacy of treatment, and I'm going to listen very carefully what the testifiers have to say. How we're going to move this ball forward ought to be an important component as well, because we've got to get the attention of people in Washington. It's extremely difficult to do that. We have some good conduits here in the room, but we want to make sure not only the VA, FDA are paying attention, but the United States Congress as well. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Chairman Gillen. Chairman Stotts, if you'd like to make an opening remark.
Good morning, and thank you, Chairman Deloso, and also welcome Chairs Solomon and Gillen and members of the Veterans Affairs and Emergency Preparedness Committee. This is an important hearing as we look to receive information and gain more understanding on the opportunity to provide veterans much-needed access to treatment for PTSD. I look forward to the hearing. Forward to hearing from our testifiers, and I want to take this opportunity to thank them for sharing their experiences, but more importantly, thank them for the service and honorable sacrifice to this country and their continued support of veterans across this state and country. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Chairman Stotts. I really have nothing to add to what these other chairmen have said. I look forward to this hearing. This is the time of the year where state reps and state senators are all having veterans get-togethers back in the district, and too many times we hear the stories firsthand, and I implore this committee going forward to make every effort to get this moving on the federal level. With that said, we have the maker of the It's Monday, and I've had half a cup of coffee so far. We have the maker of the resolution, Representative Zimmerman, here today. Representative Zimmerman, would you like to speak on HR 157 ahead of the panelist? And welcome.
Now it's on. There we go. Well, thank you, Chairman Deloso, Stats, Solomon, Gillen, and members of the Intergovernmental Affairs and Operations Committee and the Veterans and Emergency Preparedness Committee. So thanks to all of you. But thanks for holding the hearing today on HR 157. As Veterans Day was just 6 days ago, it's even more important to highlight the need for this resolution. When you consider 700,000 or more veterans reside just right here in Pennsylvania, but unfortunately, many of these heroes continue to experience the harmful and tragic effects of their brave service and suffer from many injuries, including post-traumatic syndrome or stress injury, which is PTS and PTSI, which is also commonly referred to as post-traumatic stress disorder, or PTSD. The procedure, SGD, is something that I'll allow the professionals that are here at the table to talk about a bit more, but really appreciate them being here to testify today. Our veterans who suffer from trauma and our behalf deserve the best care that is available. The resolution will ensure that they have access to every resource available as they transition back into civilian life. I look forward to the hearing from today's testifiers who will share their experience with SGB therapy. Once again, thank you for holding the hearing and look forward to the testimonies. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative Zimmerman. Now, moving on, we have 5 panelists here today to offer their expertise on PTSD and SGB treatment. Each panelist will have approximately 10 minutes for their remarks. In an effort to stay on schedule, please hold all questions until the Q&A period, which will take place after all panelists have given their remarks. Our first panelist is Dr. Sean Mulvaney, founder of the SGB Treatment Center and retired Navy SEAL officer, who is joining us via the internet. Dr. Mulvaney, you may have the floor.
Chair Deloso. Chair.
Thank you very much for this opportunity to address.
One sec.
Dr. Mulvaney, please hold. Please stand by.
Sorry, Chair. Just for the record, Representative Craig Williams and Representative Joe Ham are online joining us at this hearing. Thank you so much, Chairman.
Thank you, Chairman Solomon. Happy birthday, Representative Williams. And November 10th has recently gone by. Dr. Mulvaney, the floor is yours again, sir.
Thank you very much for this opportunity to address this esteemed body. This is, like I said, you mentioned I was a Navy SEAL officer with combat deployments on 4 continents for 9 years, and then I went to medical school. I went to the Uniformed Services University, and as a physician, I served our nation's special operations communities for 22 years before retiring. Once I got out, I founded the SGB Treatment Center, the Stellate Ganglion Block Treatment Center, and we continue to treat veterans and civilians with this therapy. I published the first research on this, the first report of stellate ganglion block significantly improving PTSD symptoms in 2010. And since then, in the peer-reviewed medical literature, I have written, contributed to or led 17 studies that have been published. The most significant of those was in 2019, published in the Journal of the American Medical Association, was a level 1 multi-center randomized controlled trial. What that means is it was a really well done study, and it's really hard to get published in those unless all of your data is looking very good. It was the first study that actually showed causality. It said if you got a SGB, your symptoms actually got better. There were multiple other studies that support that finding. In each of the studies, what's remarkable is there have not been significant serious adverse effects coming out of that. Now, when I first heard that a shot in the neck would somehow help PTSD, I assure you, more skeptical than everyone in this room. The notion came across me. It was in the course of my soldiers asking me for help, me saying I'm a musculoskeletal spine doctor. This is not my wheelhouse, but I'll keep my eyes open. And serendipitously coming in contact with someone that asked the question, could a stellate ganglion block have something to do with the fight or flight nervous system, with these PTSD symptoms that we see? Because it was a safe procedure that's been around for over 100 years. And what it does is we use ultrasound to precisely guide an injection of a local anesthetic to the fight or flight nervous system chain, the cervical sympathetic chain that connects the parts of the brain that control the fight or flight nervous system with basically every cell in the body. And it's a two-way conversation. Unlike the normal part of your brain, that's the cognitive part, says, I want, in this case, another cup of coffee, and you make yourself go get one. It's a one-way conversation. The fight or flight response, the autonomic nervous system, is a two-way conversation. In medicine, we say afferent and efferent, a two-way conversation between the body and brain. And that that system can get stuck in the on position. When that system gets stuck, either through multiple traumas or through one big trauma, that system can get stuck where it doesn't spin down. So for instance, if you're driving on a wet road at night and you realize all of a sudden the car in front of you is stopped and you start to hydroplane on the road, your whole body will go whoosh. The whole thing will get ready to survive the next few seconds. That's the fight or flight response. That system can get stuck in the on position. Now, normally you hit the brakes, your tires catch, the car stops, and everything goes back down to normal, and you go, whoo, I better slow down. In this case with PTSD, that system gets stuck in the on position. And that can happen to anyone. It's not a matter of resilience. It's not a matter of strength. It's not a matter of someone being weak or strong or a good soldier or a bad soldier. It just can happen where that system gets stuck in the on position. The stressors that our soldiers face are extreme, and this can happen. It can happen in mass shootings. It can happen in our first responder community. No question about it, that these traumas that they face can foster this. What we do is just like when you have a computer with the blue screen of death, when it's locked up and you can't get it to work and it's just stuck, we don't take those laptops and throw them in the dumpster. We at least power them down and power them back up. It sounds too simple, but that's the equivalent of what we're doing with the autonomic nervous system. When the way our current protocols are, on the right side, we'll turn it off one day, and then the next day we'll turn off that system on the left side, since we have systems on both sides of our body. And they enter our brain and our bodies in different pathways. We learn through research that we have to treat both sides to do this effectively. Well, when we reset that system, we see the results are in usually minutes, occasionally days, dramatic and durable. We have now published our 6-month data showing that when we did one intervention, their symptoms came down for 6 months. We have a study with Ohio State that we did, another randomized controlled trial. Well done. It's in press. It's been accepted for publication, but it hasn't come out yet, showing 1 year of improvement in symptoms, which if you know anything about research, it's awfully hard to get the people just to tell you how they're doing. So these studies are difficult to do, but they're showing both safety and efficacy that's dramatic. When you have somebody it's not that we don't want people going to behavioral health. It's not that we don't want people utilizing behavioral health, but when it is not working, we need to reset that system, and the results are dramatic. So that is essentially what we've been doing, what we've been researching on. The latest thing I've been researching on, now we've published 3 studies on this in the peer-reviewed literature since last November, and we have another one in press that's, and we're now getting together to do a randomized controlled trial, is we're seeing this also work with traumatic brain injury symptoms. And as we start seeing it work with traumatic brain injury symptoms, in other words, PTSD has a lot of symptoms that overlap with traumatic brain injury. But there's a lot of things that don't overlap with traumatic brain injury, things like headaches, things like loss of coordination and balance. And what we saw is as we were treating PTSD patients, especially our military patients who have a high degree of concomitant or having PTSD and traumatic brain injury exposures. So what we would see is their pure TBI symptoms were also improving, not something we expected to see. And that's when we started doing research on this. So now for our veteran population, which has a high degree of both PTSD and traumatic brain injury, we're seeing improvements in both sets of symptoms. The way this works physiologically, at least the way that we're postulating and working on getting better data on, is when we do a proper stellate ganglion block, we actually reset the cerebral blood flow, the blood flow to the brain. When that gets reset, these areas of chronic hypoxia that exists with traumatic brain injury and can also exist with PTSD, reset that normal blood flow, resulting in these durable improvements in symptoms. I am speaking to the science on this. I am speaking to this as a safe procedure that in my clinic, we see this small miracle happen, multiple times a day. Just on Veterans Day, we treated 11 patients at no cost. And you watch this happen, and you're not just giving back the service member, you're giving back a husband, you're giving back a father, you're giving back a wife, you're giving back a mom, and all the people that they impact. The results are huge. I have no problem with behavioral health. I have no problem with trials of medication. But when the Ohio State study, what we showed was that the combination of cognitive processing therapy plus SGB was far superior to just having cognitive processing therapy. So we continue to move the ball forward. This is a safe treatment that can result in dramatic improvements that impacts not just the life of the service member, but everyone in their circle. The risk of suicide is absolutely real. We see this happening. I have service members in my office literally weeping for their lost brothers. I myself have lost SEALs that I was in the same platoon with to suicide. But also in one case, I had one of my SEAL platoon members who came to see me after having a penetrating traumatic brain injury. And actually we thought we were gonna lose, and he has given me permission to talk about him, by the way. We thought we were gonna lose Dave. He had a penetrating TBI. He was in the ICU for 3 months. After a year of rehab, this man of faith had headaches so bad that he was praying for death. We did 2 stellate ganglion blocks on him, 1 on each side. His headaches resolved. We treated his neck injury that he also had with that injury, and he's back to being a productive citizen for our country. So I can't underestimate the impact that this has on your constituents and the veteran population, but not just that, also all civilians with traumatic brain injury. When you look at the statistics, they say 1 in 4 women have been sexually abused. That has an impact. And some of those people, certainly a fair majority of them, have post-traumatic stress disorder. I could go on and on about this. I could give you anecdote after anecdote of treatment, but I think I hope I encapsulated the nutshell of what it is before things get drifty. I'm here. My clinic is in Annapolis, Maryland. If you have questions, I'm happy to answer them. If I can give any kind of further clarity to these comments, please let me know. Mulvaney, over.
Dr. Mulvaney, thank you for your testimony. Our next panelist is Robin Cody, an Army and Air Force veteran who now serves as a sexual assault nurse examiner for the Massachusetts Department of Public Health. Ms. Cody is also joining us via the internet. Ms. Cody, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Good morning, committee chairman, representatives, distinguished guests, and fellow veteran advocates. It's my distinct honor and privilege to speak with you this morning about a topic that is deeply personal for me: veteran access to the stellate ganglion block for the treatment of PTSD. As mentioned, I'm an Army and Air Force veteran, a nurse, and a grateful recipient of the SGB procedure. In 1995, my former husband and I were newly married and living in a community immediately outside the main gate at Camp Lejeune, North Carolina. While deployed to the Mediterranean, he and his fellow Marines received significant media attention when they were part of a trap team that rescued Air Force pilot Scott O'Grady, who had been shot down in Bosnia. The identities of the Marines on the trap team were widely disseminated, and it was reported that they wouldn't be returning home from the deployment for many more months. Shortly thereafter, an intruder broke into our home in the middle of the night while I was sleeping and sexually assaulted me. When targeting me as a young, presumably defenseless Marine Corps wife, my assailant miscalculated my ability to defend myself thanks to my Army medic training. He certainly got more than he bargained for that fateful night, as I fought back with all my might. He fled our home, and I was able to crawl to the phone and call 911. I was treated at Camp Lejeune Naval Hospital for the injuries I sustained in the assault and released without any referrals for follow-up support or care. Knowledge and understanding of PTSD and trauma-informed care was woefully lacking in the mid-1990s. Without any professional support and treatment, I tried my best to pick up the pieces of my life and carry on, like any good soldier is hardwired to do. It would take many months before I was able to sleep with the lights out or drive alone in the dark. For many years that followed, I would wake up screaming in the middle of the night, with my former husband trying his best to de-escalate my terror and reorient me. The body stores trauma and keeps score, especially when untreated. I was living in a constant state of adrenaline-fueled hypervigilance. To outsiders looking in, it appeared that I was the picture of success and unstoppable. I obtained a business degree, got a commission in the U.S. Air Force, was a high-performing company-grade officer until I separated from the military at the end of my contract, had my son Liam, used my post-9/11 GI Bill to get a nursing degree, excelled as a healthcare leader in the public safety law enforcement space, and was accepted into an Ivy League graduate program. But inside, I was slowly becoming a shell of myself. The trauma noise inside my head was deafening. I knew that I was in serious trouble when my 26-year marriage disintegrated, when the mere ding of an elevator button caused me to jump out of my skin. And while driving at high speed on an interstate, I came within seconds of intentionally driving myself into the Jersey barriers on the side of the road, a desperate attempt to escape all the mental and physical pain that was consuming me. My close brush with death was a wake-up call to me that I was spiraling out of control and that I needed help. On June 19, 2021, I reached out to a veteran friend and confided that I was perilously close to becoming yet another veteran suicide statistic. Within my own veteran circles, I had already lost 2 beloved Marine Corps friends to suicide, Corporal Jimmy Southerly and Sergeant Ryan Mayer. They were both groomsmen in my wedding, and I love them like brothers. I was haunted by the fact that they didn't reach out for help before taking their own lives. And I was committed to not following in their footsteps. My son needed his mother. My friends sprung into action and helped me schedule to meet with Dr. James Lynch in Annapolis, Maryland, within hours of my call for help. While the cost of the SGB procedure would not have been an option for me on such short notice, financial concerns were eliminated thanks to the generosity of For the Love of a Veteran, a nonprofit that you will hear from later this morning. All that was required of me was the courage to change. It is not hyperbole to say that the SGB procedure saved my life. Dr. Lynch confirmed by guided ultrasound that the anesthetic had reached the intended nerve cluster in my neck, and almost instantly, my body was overcome with an overwhelming sense of peace and calm. In the days and weeks that followed, the fog of trauma that had become my baseline lifted. I saw the world in color again. I noticed little things that I was previously programmed to tuning out, like the birds singing or children laughing. I was finally ready to start the hard work of cognitive behavioral therapy to unlearn the maladaptive behaviors that had kept me in mere survival mode for so long. I learned to recognize the warning signs of trauma and stress responses, and I gained new tools and healthy coping mechanisms to address them when they resurfaced. There is no magic bullet that will completely eliminate the long-term impact of a traumatic experience, but the stellate ganglion block can be an incredible first step in the healing journey. My current role as a sexual assault medical forensic nurse would never have been possible without Dr. Lynch and the stellate ganglion block. I needed to heal myself before I could compassionately and effectively care for others. While every veteran's story is different, we all took an oath to serve and defend our country. Every brother and sister veteran suffering from PTSD deserves access to evidence-based treatment options like the stellate ganglion block through the VA. Relief shouldn't be reserved only for those with the financial means or network connections to pursue treatment outside the medical establishment that is ultimately responsible for our care. I welcome and look forward to answering any questions you may have about my experience with SGB. Thank you sincerely for your time and commitment to veterans.
Thank you for your testimony, Ms. Cody. Chairman Stotts.
Thank you, Chairman. I just want to recognize that we've been joined by Representative Donna Sharon virtually. Thank you.
Thank you. The record will reflect. Dr. Cody, thank you again. Our next panelist actually came to visit me in my office, Lieutenant Colonel Jay Ostrich.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman. Good morning, representatives. I'm Lieutenant Colonel, Air Force Lieutenant Colonel Jay Ostrich. I'm a 23-year veteran, a combat veteran with more than 20 years of serving in Air Force Special Operations, and I am currently the Director of Berks County Veterans Affairs, home to more than 19,000 veterans and their families. It is a distinct privilege to be here to try to shine light into a very dark place for our veterans this morning. Now, while most American troops are not actively engaged in combat this morning, I need you to make no mistake. They are fighting a war. And let's talk about what kind of war they're fighting and what kind of carnage is being committed right here in our own backyard. Consider that during the global war on terror, 2001, we lost 7,085 of our veterans in Afghanistan and Iraq. Consider, too, that during that time, 2001 to present day, we have lost 140,000 American soldiers, sailors, airmen, and Marines to suicide in this country. 140,000. That's more than the battlefield deaths in Vietnam and Korea combined. It's heartbreaking. It's tragic, and it is thoroughly unacceptable. My journey fighting the unseen enemy began after my combat tour in Iraq. I was stationed at U.S. Embassy Baghdad during 2009, 2010. We were charged with trying to get on-time, secure, safe, and credible elections for the Iraqi people. And because we were trying to do that out of the embassy was considered target number one for al-Qaeda Iraq and some of the militias. And so they would target the embassy through what we call IDF, indirect fire. So think about rockets and mortar fire, sniper fire, VBIEDs, vehicle-borne improvised explosive devices. They were a daily part of our living and threats there. And when I returned home to Pennsylvania, I thought that war was well behind me. I was so happy to be back on our soil again. But returning to quote-unquote normal life wasn't normal at all. I had developed, because of all the impacts of mortars and rockets, I've developed a startle reflex of a newborn infant. So any noise, and you heard Rob and Cody talk about that, any little noise that I didn't expect, I would startle. But that wasn't the worst of it. Hair trigger temper, not able to even go out to eat with my 3-year-old daughter and my wife at the time, because I always had to have the gunslinger seat to see if anything was coming in the door to come and get us. And that wasn't the worst part either, because 4 to 5 times a week, I would awaken screaming from a night terror and awaken my daughter. And it was very frightening for her to see her daddy come back in that state. She woke to one of my night panics, and she said 3 words that changed my life: "Daddy needs help." I did. After confiding with a fellow officer, he told me I needed to go to the VA. I trusted that officer. He had proven to be a wonderful mentor, so I looked at it like an order, and I went to the Lebanon VA Medical Center. And what follows, I need you to know, I'm not here to bash on the VA. There are amazing professionals there that are healing us every single day, but your miles may vary. And here is my story. When I went to psychiatry at Lebanon VA, my treating psychiatrist had a cursory interview with me and then picked up his prescription pad, and he started issuing me a prescription for Klonopin, which is a benzodiazepine with an extremely short half-life to it to help me with my anxiety attacks. And he also said I'd come back and we'd start to talk about that trauma a little bit. Sure enough, in the first couple weeks of taking the medication, some of my symptoms subsided, and I thought that was a wonderful thing. But when I returned to see the doctor again and we started to talk about my trauma, that doctor would fall asleep in his chair during the rest of our session. And when he would awaken again, he would pick up his prescription pad and he would issue me a longer and higher dose of Klonopin. In 2012, the Secretary of Defense got wind to how much Klonopin they had been, and other medications the VA was putting us on, and said, well, if you're going to continue your service to this nation, we need you to get off of that stuff. We're going to give you 3 months. Here's your grace period. If you know anything about benzodiazepines, 3 months is a painfully inadequate time to wean yourself off of that medication. And thus began my descent into absolute hell. For the next few years, I tried to detox from that medication. And I want to give you an example of some of what that was like. Experts see detoxing from benzos as extremely difficult. Some say it's actually more difficult than getting off of heroin. I wouldn't disagree, because over the next few years, I experienced insomnia at a level that I could not even imagine, extreme agitation, noticeable hand tremors, panic attacks now throughout the day and night, hallucinations, and delirium, which is a sudden change in a person's cognitive function, awareness, and of course, their behavior. In that time, I found myself in and out of emergency rooms more than a dozen times. It was humiliating, and it was painful. I lost my marriage. I lost custody of my daughter, and I lost the job here in the Pennsylvania house that I really cherished. Everything that I had worked for was rapidly slipping away, and now I was addicted to 7 other medications that they put on. I was binge drinking, I was depressed, and I was without hope. I actually saw myself now as the enemy of my family, friends. And we're trained in the military, when you identify an enemy, you take them out. And I can't help but feel that those who have taken their lives, that 140,000, they may have felt exactly that way. I'm not proud to say this, but I am proud to be a survivor. I thought very clearly about taking my life, and I had a plan. But for the grace of God, went I. And then in 2019, still suffering, I watched a 60 Minutes piece with Dr. Mulvaney featured in it. It's called SGB Breakthrough, and if you haven't seen it, I urge you to watch it. I saw this former Navy SEAL performing what really looked like miracles, and almost seemed like it was too good to be true. Just an outpatient shot in 15 minutes, you feel better? Skeptical, I went down to Dr. Mulvaney's office, and he was so gracious to let me in, and I saw a group of 5 gentlemen who were from Alabama come up to get 2 of their buddies that shot in Dr. Mulvaney's clinic. But here's the thing, and I need you to listen to this. They were forced to rattle a tin can around their town of Coleman, Alabama, to raise enough money to get gas in a van to drive from Coleman up to Annapolis. They rattled a tin can. They begged on the side of the road just to get their buddy, who just 24 hours prior had a pistol in his mouth ready to end his life. And I watched Dr. Mulvaney give that Marine, we call that look that he had, a 1,000-yard stare when he came into that office. I watched him on that chair, and I watched what the doctor did, and in 15 minutes, you could see a wave of peace and calm come over that Marine's face, and he started to weep, but they were tears of joy. I asked him later that day what he was feeling, and he said, I feel love again. I feel like I can love myself again. This isn't something I felt since I was a child. Still skeptical. I read about the study the U.S. Army did on the procedure. It was published in JAMA Psychiatry. All roads pointed to that miracle, and so I saved every penny I could to be able to go down to Dr. Mulvaney's clinic. And in 2020, I had my first SGB treatment. I can tell you this, that man you heard from, he saved my life. SGB saved my life. In just moments after that injection, I had a wave of peace fall over me I had not felt since I was a little kid. In the days that followed, I started to see details in my life reappear. I didn't know that I had birds in my backyard. Actually, now know that I have 17 different species of birds in my backyard. I could see the texture of leaves on the tree. I could hear my daughter laughing again and playing her guitar upstairs. All things that had been blunted and muted from my life were suddenly reawakened again. In the months that followed, and then the years that followed, I was able to reconnect with my family and friends and with my God and Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ, in a way that I had never been able to before. I got custody of my daughter back. I got my career and my passions back, all because of SGB. And today I'm proud to say that I've been free from all psychiatric medications for more than 5 years. And I went from those night terrors of 4 or 5 times a week, being awakened to everyone around me, 4 or 5 times a week. I've had 2 treatments of SGB in the last 5.5 years. That's it, 2. And I've had 4 instances of mild panic in those 5.5 years. 4. But as I enjoyed the benefits of SGB, I came to understand how absolutely insane it is that Marines would have to rattle a tin can around to come and get that treatment. And I investigated what the VA was doing about SGB. And sure enough, the VA states that SGB is a safe, effective, and ethical treatment for PTSD. And they do actually administrate it at some of their facilities. But here's the deal. They administrate it at 11 of 1,380 of their hospitals and clinics. 11. When you increase the time, distance, and money it takes for a veteran to get treatment when they're in trauma, it should be no surprise that 140,000 of us are gone. This absolute insanity must change with the VA, which is why we need Congress to compel the VA to change and offer it at more of their hospitals and clinics. But what's worse about the VA is they will give that treatment to our veterans, but only after they literally fail from other conventional treatment. You must fail before you get that SGB treatment if they give you a brief on it at all. And once again, time, distance, and money. We all know the consequences of what failure is for not getting treatment. Instead of giving our veterans the very best options, we have literally condemned them to treatments that have turned them into addicts and turned them into beggars just to scrape a few dollars up so they can try and find peace. Our heroes should not be dependent on luck, word of mouth, like you heard from with Robin, or the generosity of strangers to find healing. And they should never, ever be forced to fail. And so I ask this committee to consider H.R. 157 very seriously. We believe that this is a tremendous shot in the arm for the legislation that's in front of Congress right now. We need to continue to shine light in these dark places and give our veterans access to every ability to heal. I thank you for your time.
Thank you, Colonel Ostrich, for your testimony. Like I said, I've met the Colonel in office.
Thank you, brother.
I'd ask that the clerk recognize that we have been joined by Representative Takak. As we continue to move with the hearing, our next panelist, I've also met prior to being here today, is Chief Warrant Officer number 2, Will Tobin. Mr. Tobin, as we call warrant officers in the Marine Corps, Mr. Tobin, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and members of the committee, distinguished guests, and fellow veterans. Thank you for the opportunity to allow me to testify. My name is Will Tobin. As you know, I'm a retired Army Chief Warrant Officer and currently serving as the Deputy Director of the Berks County Veteran Affairs, and I'm also a proud combat veteran of Operation Iraqi Freedom. And I'm also a man who lives with PTSD and TBI. You know, Jay mentioned nationally 140,000 veterans has succumbed to suicide due to post-traumatic stress disorder. And that's a national number. And in Berks County, it does hit close to home. We make up about approximately 4% of the population. The veteran cohort, Berks County makes about 4% of the population, but this year, 26% of the suicides are veterans in Berks County, are veterans. So that is a call for action for us to do more. I joined the Army at 17, and like many of us who came into uniform at that age, the military quickly became my home and my identity. I rose through the enlisted ranks pretty fast, and by the time we deployed in 2009, they assigned me as a battle captain because there wasn't enough officers. I was a young staff sergeant. And mainly because I had a lot of doctrinal experience. I had 8 military occupational specialty. I was a paratrooper. So traditionally, a lot of the Guard officers don't have that much experience, and I was active duty. But my responsibilities included coordinating and executing deliberate combat logistic patrols to forward operating bases, approximately 7 of them in the Camp Taji area of Iraq. And by the time I got there, I was doing a right seat, left seat with the previous command that we were replacing, and they pretty much told me that they were sustaining casualties on a weekly basis or attacks. And obviously, I did not want to have that happen in my watch. So I coordinated with a lot of enablers like attack helicopters, engineer groups, and maneuver battalions. And I'm proud to say that we sustained no casualties the 12 months we were there. But a lot of my trauma came from the collateral damage that I felt like I helped create because I had these organizations level everything before we got there. And it wasn't until after the war that I realized, wow, you know, look at all the collateral damage that I created. And just like any other soldier or sailor airman that served overseas. Obviously, we received indirect fire, and there was other things, moments that happened that's too hard to speak about, but that it doesn't necessarily ever leaves you. When I came home in 2009, late 2009, I brought the war with me. You know, I couldn't sleep. My mind never stopped racing, and I was stuck in that same operational high op tempo that I was when I was serving. I was operating 20 hours a week, 6 days a week, and so I was always on full throttle, and it really affected my my family life. I distanced myself from my family. I alienated my family, and I just inundated myself with work. That's how I pretty much combated my PTSD. It was like I was running because I did not want to look back. And with that, I was totally distant from my family, wasn't at any games or anything, extracurricular activities that my child was involved in. I wasn't physically present. Now, I did seek mental health treatment while I was in the military, and many of you would know that if you did serve that, you know, the military organization, the military as a whole do the best that they can to take care of you, but unit readiness is important. And as an officer, you know, unpacking post-traumatic stress, and especially as a warrant officer, could be damaging to your career. You know, organization, I was a supply systems technician in command of a supply support activity. Organization of brigade of 4,500 soldiers, I'm the only one that's a supply. So warrant officer community is very, very small. So that pressure was always on me. Now, for many years, I maintained I was functional, and in many instances, my command would say I was highly performing, but I was also undisciplined. They knew I was angry. They knew I was, at times, could be insubordinate, but I was effective. So they just ignored that and breezed right past that. But the war may have ended on paper, but it never ended in my mind, and it was still going on a daily basis. When I transitioned to my current role as the Deputy Director of Berks County Veteran Affairs, I found a new mission, and that was helping veterans. But listening to their stories and hearing their pain and their losses and their PTSD brought my own trauma back into surface. And when Jay took over as Director of Veteran Affairs, he noticed right away that I was suffering from PTSD. He noticed that I was there on Saturdays, I was there on Sundays, I'll be the last one out of the building, and he had a heart-to-heart conversation with me, and we pretty much unpacked it and cried together, and he was the one that really pushed me to the SGB treatment. Initially, I wasn't really fond of the idea. I didn't want to be medicated. I thought it was a medication, and just like I witnessed with so many of my veteran counterparts, I didn't want to be a zombie. And he was on me about it, and finally I said, you know what? Things started resurfacing to a point that I knew that I couldn't control it anymore. I had this monster in me that felt like was growing, and that's the way I described it. So in May of this year, I took the SGB treatment, and this is why I'm here today, not as a veteran, but as a father and as an advocate for the men and women who wore our uniform. I think we owe it to our veterans to explore every option, safe option, that effective treatment that can help them reclaim their lives. And SGB treatment is one of those things. And it obviously is not a magic cure, but for many veterans, it has found nothing but relief. I know from my foxhole, I always say that as soon as I took that treatment, it was almost as the best way I could describe it is revisiting a neighborhood that you grew up in. You know, you notice some changes, but you're at home. And it was for the first time in my life I was able to be me again for a very, very long time. So I just want to emphasize that SGB treatment gave me my life back, gave my kids their father back. My son is 20 years old, he's going on 21, and I finally had a conversation with him last week, a man-to-man conversation, and I apologized to him for not being the father that I should have been, and he understood everything. I thought my kids didn't understand that I was suffering from mental health issues, and he understood, and we hugged and we cried. And this is the first time that I was able to have that conversation and tell my son that I'm proud of him. So it has given me a renewed sense of purpose and ensuring, I just want to ensure that every veteran has that same opportunity that I was given. So thank you for your time, and thank you all for your service to this Commonwealth and your willingness to listen to my voice. And I truly hope today's discussion moves us closer to making SGB treatment available to every veteran who needs it. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Chief Warrant Officer Tobin, for your remarks. Our final panelist is Christine Waltz. She is the founder of For the Love of a Veteran, a nonprofit organization dedicated to funding SGB treatment for veterans with PTSD. Ms. Waltz, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone, and thank you for having us here. Our mission, our organization actually started in 2013, and my why is my son. My whole family is military, but our mission has always been to help our nation's heroes that suffer with PTSD, PTSI, and TBS. In June of 21, we became aware of the stellate ganglion block, and it was actually from a third party, and our Congressman Scott Perry, which Jay had previously worked for, said there's one right here in Annapolis, which was Dr. Mulvaney and Dr. Lynch at the time. We became aware of that, recognizing its effectiveness and the cost. We know a lot of veterans and military couldn't afford this, so we changed it to be our main mission, helping heroes heal, to give everybody the chance to get this. The VA was not sufficiently meeting the need. There's a few that had it on the West Coast, but it's not readily available to all of them. Currently, we have covered more than 767 procedures, amounting to approximately $994,500. And that's all through just fundraising to get our heroes the treatment they so desperately need. Many of our veterans that we send for treatment are referred by VAs all across the country, therapists and others, and other doctors' office. There's inconsistencies in the access, though. While some VAs, like I mentioned, on the West Coast cover it, not all do, and I do not understand that at all. The doctors really need to be specially trained in this, as a lot of pain management doctors do this, but it's not the same way that doctors that do the research, such as Dr. Mulvaney and Dr. Lynch do, and are experts in the field. I'm sorry, I get emotional when I'm talking about this stuff, but if we're willing to send our loved ones into service, we must also be willing to help them heal upon their return. They're not just service members. They're our friends, family members, integral members of our communities, and they have made immense sacrifices, missed holidays, missed major milestones, in some cases paid the ultimate price. It's our responsibility to provide them with the support they deserve. We urge you to vote in favor of making the stellate ganglion block a first line of defense for our nation's heroes. By doing so, we can give them a fighting chance at recovery and a better quality of life. We have many veterans that have given us feedback. The injection has relieved my stress and anxiety. My mind feels so relaxed. I can actually focus on what I'm doing and complete tasks. This injection gave me a chance to reset my anger, my anxiety, and ability to let bad things go much easier. So are they still going to get mad? Are they still going to get upset? Are they still going to have dreams? Yes. But when they come, they leave a lot quicker. They don't just dwell on them all the time. My son is a prime example. He had a lot of anger issues from when he was deployed. He never talks about when he was deployed. He would only sleep when I was at home. He would only sleep during the day. Anything could set him off. You never knew what it was going to be. When he got this injection, he's a totally different person. It's like a 360-degree turn. He laughs, he talks to people, he helps with the organization, which is also very therapeutic for him. We just had a gala Saturday night. Dr. Mulvaney attended, Dr. Lynch was there. We had veterans that were treated by both of them talking about what it did for them, how it saved their marriage, how it saved the relationship with their family, how it made them better at work, being able to interact with their fellow employees, with the community again. One of them just finished the procedure, and they said, I can't begin to thank you enough for this opportunity. I actually feel like I have my real normal life back, and with my family. I'm so grateful and blessed this has all come together. I was at an all-time low, and if this would not have helped, it was my last resort, and I was going to take my life the next day. And if anybody has any questions, please reach out. We do support this injection. We also sponsor it, and we pay for it since it's not covered by the VA and the insurance.
Thank you, Ms. Waltz, for your testimony. Having heard from the panelists, now is the time for questions and answers. And one of the fortunate things about being the chairman is I get to ask the first question and the last. So, to start this off, I have to go back to Dr. Mulvaney. Dr. Mulvaney, what is the genesis? Where did we find SGB treatment? Where did it start? How was it used as an initial treatment? And how is it that it's taken 60 minutes and 100,000 veteran suicides to find this?
Thank you for your question, Chairman. This happened, I think the most accurate thing to say is it found me. At the time I treated patient number 1, he was a veteran of Desert Storm. He was in intense ground combat, including close quarters killing, including having a door blown up on him while he was moving through a bunker and knocking him unconscious for a period of time. Kind of classic PTSD precursor. He came back and he gave me my first accurate description of what a flashback was, which is it's not a memory at all. It's a now. It's a happening. It's a memory without a timestamp. It feels real. They feel the blast wave. They smell the cordite. And I was doing an exam on him after he had a car accident. He had fallen asleep at the wheel, and I finally drug it out of him. Why did you fall asleep? He was one of my soldiers, and he was taking Seroquel, which is an antipsychotic used off-label for PTSD, nightmares and PTSD symptoms. And he said, look, I want off of these drugs. I hate them. I feel like I'm sneaking them. I don't want to do this anymore, but I don't know how else to feel better. And he was in the care of an Army psychiatrist. And he's like, I still feel awful. And the only reason why he admitted to me, I think, because I was a fellow soldier, because I had actually walked the ground with, that he had walked. And I was involved in Desert Storm as well. So I said, look, I don't know what to do for you. I go, but I'll keep my eyes open. And then a week later, I'm at a musculoskeletal medicine conference in Madison, Wisconsin. And a person walks up to me who I don't know. And I'm in civilian clothes. And he says, you're an Army doctor, right? I said, yeah. He says, what do you make of this? And he pulls out of his pocket a newspaper clipping about stellate ganglion block being used for women's perimenopausal hot flashes. And I have no idea what he's about to ask me. And he said, do you think this has anything to do with PTSD? And I thought it was bizarre. I said, and then I remembered my own voice saying, I'll look into anything. So I said, look, I don't understand this, how it might help, but thanks, I'll look into it. And I went out to, at the time, a payphone booth, believe it or not, and I called the doctor that was in the newspaper clipping. And I never say never, but if you ever call my clinic, I will never answer the phone because I'm always busy in the back. So he answers the phone, this doctor. He answers the phone. I said, hey, this may sound weird, but I'm an Army doctor. And do you think this might have anything to do with PTSD, your work with stellate ganglion block? And he's like, well, fight or flight nervous system. He goes, sure, I suppose those symptoms could be maintained that way. I went back and I asked that guy, hey, this thing's been around for 100 years. It's a safe procedure. Do you want to try it? I didn't even get out of my mouth till he said, do it now. We did the procedure, and I'll never forget it. On the table, he said, I haven't felt this good since high school. And I thought it was, I didn't know what it was. I thought it was some crazy placebo effect. But I had done questionnaires on him before, and I was going to track and see how he was doing. A week later, a Marine comes in my office and he relates to me. He's 27 years old and he's kind of kicking his feet and he's asking me for, can I get some Viagra? And I'm like, hey, I know that was a hard ask. And tell you what, I'm going to get you some. Why do you need Viagra, though? I got to do this doctor thing and figure out, why does a 27-year-old stormtrooper need Viagra? And he said, well, and I drag it out of him. I'm taking Paxil and I'm having sexual side effects from these drugs, which is a very common side effect, sexual side effects are common with these drugs. So I said, hey, look, I just treated this other guy with this crazy injection in the neck. It's been around for 100 years. It's safe. I go, would you? And I didn't even get it out of my mouth till he said, do it now. The reason why I'm sorry, I have to back up that story on the Marine. He was in intense combat in Battle of Fallujah. He came home from that combat and he basically locked himself away from his wife and 2 daughters in the upstairs bathroom for about a year. The wife put up with it for about a year and then she left with the 2 daughters. His marriage fell apart. And this is now 3.5 years later. And he said, I met someone I'd like to start dating, but I'm just worried I won't even be able to have sex. And so that was the prelude to all that. So I said, do you want to try this? He said, yes, do it now. And we did it. And the response was similar, about exactly the same. I gradually tapered them off all of their medications over the next 6 weeks. And I kept on taking surveys on them every month, the standardized PTSD survey. And they kept staying better for 6 months. And that was the nidus for the first paper. I was like, does anyone know about this? Is this a thing? And that's where it started. Next, we did publish a paper looking at 166 mostly SEALs. And they were going from, this was interesting. Sorry for the long answer. This is interesting because every time they did a deployment, they would come home and fill out these same surveys, the PCLM. They would fill out these surveys saying, do you have PTSD? And what would they do? You know what every SEAL did. They said, I'm fine, I'm fine, I'm fine. I don't want to talk to people that don't understand where I was and what I do. I don't trust them. And so I'm just going to say I'm fine. And that's what they did until I was treating one of their team leaders. And the team leader he was a great guy, but I'm treating his elbow. And he said, hey, doc, let me ask you something. He goes, I'm in meetings and I'm getting drifty, and that's not me. I can't focus. And I see people I've known for years in the hallway, and I can't remember their name. And I said, I go, well, I'm going to give you this PTSD survey, but this time fill it out honestly, because those are some of the only symptoms that people will cop to. They don't want to cop to anger. They don't want to cop to yelling at their children or their wife. They don't want to cop to things that'll make the guns go away. But they'll cop to memory. They'll cop to sleep. They'll cop to mind fog. And so whenever I hear those, I'm always like, this person has PTSD now. Fill it out honestly. Because I was a fellow SEAL, he filled it out honestly. And I'm like, you have PTSD. We did a stellate ganglion block. I'm like, you want the shot? He's like, yeah. The next day, he's driving with his 4 kids that are under the age of 5 to see his mom in Kentucky. And he came back and he stood in front of his team and he said, listen, he goes, we're going back into combat in a month. And if you're dealing with what I was dealing with, you're not at your best. And so that's where this got traction, was not on treating disease. It got traction based on treating performance. These guys had to go back into combat and they need to be ready to go. And in fact, we published a study showing that when we did SGB, not only did we improve their PTSD symptoms, we improved their neurocognitive function, including reaction time, which you can't fake reaction time. There's no medicine I can give you that makes your reaction time better. So it was the first treatment that actually improved combat survivability. That was a long answer to your question, but I love this stuff. Sorry, Chairman, I'm over.
No, and we love that you're involved in it. With that, I want to open to my colleagues' questions. Chairman Stotts, do you have a question?
And yes, thanks, Chair Deloso. So thank all of you for your very powerful, comprehensive, and heartfelt testimony. I think most of my questions were answered through your testimony. But Dr. Mulvaney, I do have one question. Lieutenant Colonel Ostrich mentioned that you had 2 treatments in the last 5 years. Is that typical for a treatment schedule?
Thank you for that insightful question. It is basically what I tell people when they come to get treated is 1/3 of my patients are one and done. We treat them, they get leg room, the system resets, including I've treated Vietnam veterans with over 50 years of symptoms who get the SGB, and in the waiting room, they're in the procedure room, they're literally weeping saying, I feel like I'm finally back. It's humbling to be a part of this process, I have to say, in all honesty. You should be getting no sense of hubris, only of humble, of being able to help these people, being able to help our countrymen. So 1/3 are one and done. Some people, the whole idea is that when we give a stellate ganglion block, that they start to sleep better at night, they repair relationships around them, they're able to be around other people without it being stressful. And so we're literally raising up the resilience. The resilience is ground to a nub for being constantly triggered. As the resilience increases, the exact same stimulants that were keeping them triggered will fall below the threshold of what can trigger them. So the things that used to make them crazy and trigger them and keep them in that loop, we're now able to raise the resilience enough that that's how we get the durable effects. That's what we see. But some of these people will still have encounters that will re-trigger them. And it may happen all at once. It may happen later in life, especially with sexual assault, and especially, honestly, in our first responder community. Our first responder community, if I'm a soldier and I'm over there and things happen and I come back here, I'm probably not going to be faced with, that same Iraqi town door blowing up or whatever. First responders, police officers and firefighters, they are going into the exact same neighborhood that they got their symptoms in. And so in many cases, they're more exposed to their triggers. The short answer is, actually, I don't do short answers, as you can see. The short answer is that as the resilience grows, they don't re-trigger, but they may still re-trigger. So some of the people will be doing well for months, maybe years, and their symptoms may come back. If they come back, it can safely be re-triggered. And some people will need to be retreated. And then the big thing that I try to convey to them is letting go of that guilt that comes with these symptoms. This system is a background system. You and I aren't thinking about breathing right now. Lord knows I don't think about breathing when I'm talking. So we don't think about breathing. It's an example of the autonomic nervous system running in the background. We don't think about digesting food, maintaining our body temperature. Lots of complex things happen in the background that we don't really think about. And the fight or flight response is one of those. And when that system gets triggered, it can get stuck. And when it gets stuck, we have to go in, reset it. And then behavioral health can give them excellent tools for keeping those symptoms down and keeping them from recurring. Did that answer your question, sir?
It's very impressive, and I appreciate the answer. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Chairman Stotts. Chairman Gillen, do you have a question?
Yeah, just very briefly. We heard a lot of expert testimonial. Appreciate the doctor's testimony. Jay and Will, thank you. Very, very compelling. I don't think it would be very easy to forget what you have shared at a personal level. Thank you kind of for bearing your soul here in front of the group. We've heard about safety, a track record of 100 years of efficacy and treatment success. Question is, how are we going to get the attention of decision makers? The Veterans Administration. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, I read that the decision to offer SGB is made at a local level, at the VA facility, at a leadership level locally, which is maybe part of the explanation as to why we only have it offered at 11 clinics or facilities nationwide. So really twofold, am I accurate in what I have read relative to the decision-making level? And secondly, how are we going to get the attention of policy makers? What political role do we have in this in compelling Congress to move the ball forward?
Chairman, I'll attempt to answer at least part of your question, if I may, sir, and then I would love to hear Robin's thoughts and other panelists' thoughts on this. As far as getting the attention of the VA, I've been in meetings with fairly high-ranking federal VA officials who met with congressmen on this issue. And I will tell you, while I don't think that they were malicious in their approach whatsoever, they also, I'll give you a phrase. When the only tool in your toolbox is a hammer, everything starts to look like a nail. And so it is with the VA. They have decades of treating people by handing them out medication and talk therapy. And again, I'm not here to bash on the VA, but it is an extremely large bureaucracy and it is very difficult to vector that ship even a slight degree. And so what is necessary, and the reason why the VA needs to be compelled to change, is because they don't want to change. They're doing the same things over and over again and expecting a different result, which is the textbook definition of insanity. They must be forced to change, which is what the legislation from Congress is all about. We must force them to change.
If I can add something to that as well, Jay, a lot of the medications that they do give these guys and girls cause suicidal ideation. And that is part of the problem. I've had veterans that have been on 15 to 20 some different pills a day. And when they get this injection, they're off almost all of them. It's a totally life-changing and life-saving procedure.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Chairman Solomon.
Thank you, Chairman, and thank you all so much. It was kind of a similar strain through the testimony than when you had this SGB injection. It was almost instantaneous. There was this sense of relief, but also kind of the sensory components of hearing the birds, feeling joy, feeling love again, being reconnected to your family, to your friends, to your community. I'm just wondering how, maybe to the doctors, how does that actually happen almost immediately? Because the sensory components are there for the individuals, but how does that just open up immediately upon getting this injection?
I'm happy to take that one on. When you're in fight or flight, your entire system is amped. It is at a 10 out of 10. And that doesn't leave a lot of bandwidth for birds or anything else for that matter. So if you picture like you're wearing a 100-pound rucksack, you're wearing a 100-pound backpack all the time, that's the strain on your system. And of course, you don't think that you're going to go walk over here and there. You're just going to go only where you have to go because there's just this weight on you. When we do a stellate ganglion block, when we reset the sympathetic nervous system, the fight or flight nervous system, it can happen in minutes, it can happen to days. Although it's very nice to have very dramatic moments when people feel better all at once. Sometimes it takes days for that system to kind of uncoil. Not only that, that stress is the devil you know, and it takes a little while for that to feel comfortable letting that go, believe it or not. But when we do the stellate ganglion block, when they feel that relief of symptoms right away, I'm only injecting a local anesthetic called ropivacaine. It's a long-acting local anesthetic like you might get for a dental procedure. It stops nerves from conducting. That's all it does. It doesn't have any effects. It doesn't make you calm. It doesn't make you relaxed. It doesn't make you feel good. None of that. All it does is stops nerves from conducting. When I use it to turn off the two-way conversation between body and brain that's keeping that fight or flight nervous system amped, it turns it off all at once. And what people feel is overwhelmingly relaxed and calm. And it's kind of like if you have that backpack on and then you take the backpack off and you feel like you're literally going to float. There's nothing in the backpack that makes you feel light. It's the absence of weight that they're feeling. It is not a physiologic effect of what I injected into them. It's the physiologic effect of them going from being amped, them being in fight or flight, to them being at their baseline. Even if it's been decades since they felt it, it's still there.
Thank you. That answer is great. Thank you, Chairman Solomon. And this hearing would not be complete if I didn't recognize and ask for a question from Representative Rusnak, who brought this to my front door and brought these two good gentlemen here from Berks County Veterans in to see me. Representative Rusnak, do you have a question?
Thank you, Chair Deloso. Thank you, gentlemen, for coming up, and I appreciate you recognizing me for this, but honestly, it was a meeting that I had with you, Jay, and Will in the Veterans Affairs office back in Berks County a few months ago, and made quite an impact on me. And the impact was due to the fact that you were so willing, Jay, to share your story, And I know without this treatment, I just do not think that the emotion that I see come out of you, would be able for you to be able to do that. And I watched both you and Will this morning, and Dr. Mulvaney, I do have a dental background, so I know very well about the drug that you're talking about. But it is truly an amazing thing to hear your story. I think that personal stories are so important to be able to make an impact, and we can talk about the treatment, and we can talk about statistics, but it's truly the stories that make the most impact. So I know that you are very courageous men. I know all of our military personnel are very courageous, but to have you come forward and share your stories, your personal stories with us, and let us know not only the impact that it's had on you, but your family members, your work life. This has quite a ripple effect, and it's not just affecting you yourself, but it is affecting all of the people around you, and the impact that it can make on our community as a whole is tremendous. And I just was so thankful, Jay, that you had reached out to me and said, can you please, get this in front of your chair so that we can talk about this on this level. And I appreciate Chair Deloso making time for that meeting as well. So I sat here and listened to your story. I read the testimony last night. I read through all the testimony, and I will tell you, my boyfriend is a former Marine as well. And I read it out loud as I was sitting on the couch, and there were quite a few moments where I had to take a moment because it just affects me on such an emotional level. Hearing it again today, tears streaming down my face, looking at the people who are in the audience today, I know it affected them on that same level. And this just seems like a no-brainer, which I know sounds like, kind of funny to say that, but it sounds like a no-brainer to be able to give this to more of our military personnel and our veterans, along with people who, like Dr. Cody, you had experienced the trauma of sexual assaults. There are many of you out there as well. Dr. Mulvaney, this is a very simple procedure, as you have stated. It's a drug that's been around for a very long time. I think my question is, we only have 11 facilities that can offer this treatment out of 1,380 facilities. Yes, we need to urge Congress to help with this, but what also needs to be done is there's special training that needs to be done to be able to inject into the stellate ganglion cluster. And, is part of it training, is part of it cost to be able to get more people to be able to train to do this? What needs to be done in order to get more than 11 facilities up and operating to be able to provide this type of treatment to the people that deserve it the most?
I can take a quick stab at that. I've actually I've flown out to the veteran facility in Long Beach, California, and I did training for their anesthesia department. And we did it over multiple days, including standing over their shoulder while they performed some of these procedures. So number one, the VA, there's no such thing as the VA. There's a series of fiefdoms across this country, and they are doing what they want to do, and they're doing it as they want to do it. And unless they're absolutely compelled to step in line, even then they will resist and do what they want to do anyway. That's a fact. That's not something and I have nothing against the VA. I'm a retired after 31 years in the military, but change is slow. Number two, training. Your question is particularly astute because training is a big part of this. There are many people that on paper might have the credentials to do this, but how you do this for PTSD and now traumatic brain injury is a little different. I have no secret sauce. I have published everything I do, all of my techniques, but actually getting people, number one, you have to spend some time with the patient to go over, hi Jane, well, you have to spend some time with the patient and to let them know what just happened and what's going to happen. and to put them at ease before it happens and to do a proper consent. So you have to spend some time, and then you have to have training. You have to be able to do this. This should be done under ultrasound guidance, and developing those skills to accurately see a needle and accurately work in a piece of high-priced real estate in the anterior neck does take some training, even for people that have, ostensibly might have this procedure on their credentials. We do it different than we do it for, say, the other indications. There's other indications for doing a stellate ganglion block. We do it in a different manner than we do it for that, and we do it on the right side, and the next day the left side. Many places, even places within the VA that do it, aren't doing it by the latest protocols. So there is a training challenge, and other VA facilities have reached out to me, and I'm willing to go and help with that, but I'm one person. But I think that training and access, even the ones that offer it, like at Long Beach, I think they offer very few stellate ganglion block appointments per month. So, and they only treat people from when they're within their VA catchment area. So a lot of places, even that offer it, won't take veterans from other catchment area or other states. So these are challenges, and I don't have all the answers to them. Over.
Thank you, Doctor. We're about to get run out of this room. I want to thank all the panelists for their testimony today. Your expertise is very much appreciated, and I want to thank the members that have joined us today in this joint hearing. It just makes good sense. We're going to do what we can to move H.R. 157 and get the light of day it needs. I regret hearing that, of course, the VA is a monster bureaucracy comprised of several different fiefdoms. And I agree. Sometimes I agree in forced change. That's what has to be done, and I look forward to moving it. I want to thank all of you for attending today. Again, thank you for your testimony. And with that, I will call this meeting closed.